Good evening. You're on the live. I'm Bishop Neville G. Wilson, again with our special guest for the second time, Mrs. Yvonne Mitto. How are you?
Doing well today. Thank you so much, Bishop.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming back. Part two. Let me just say this. Last week was really an eye-opener, to say the least, and had many responses, favorable responses. And we thought it was only right to have you back. I know your schedule is really tight and packed, but I'm glad you were able to shuffle it a little and to accommodate it. So we thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad I was able to do that, and I'm really happy to be with you again this
Absolutely,
evening. Yeah.
absolutely.
So before we go any further, how is your dollar bill going? Dollar bill savings going?
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
We'll definitely talk about that. It's going good, actually. All right. So again, you're on the live. And as we do, we begin with prayer because we believe God should be the center of everything that we do and say of our lives. We mentioned last time that money never left the planet.
Correct.
It's still here.
It's still here.
So we need to know how to figure
manage
it out.
and figure it out and manage how it.
All right.
With it here.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your goodness, your grace, and your mercy towards us. Thank you for another day that you've given unto us. Thank you for your loving kindness that is better than life. We thank you, Lord, for giving us again this opportunity that we can come even to discuss practical matters in regards to principles of your word. We ask that your blessings will be upon us. We pray even now for those that are in need, that something that may be said, Lord, will be helpful to individuals as they maneuver and go forward. Father, we ask that your blessings will be upon us now. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Again, Yvonne, welcome. Again, thank you so very much. So, in regards to the dollar challenge, I was really surprised. And that's one of the things, amongst others, that I took away from last week's session. Not so much a dollar, but a behavioral change.
Right.
So, I'm looking at in this aspect, if I can change my behavior and just, hey, I have a couple dollars here, don't put it in my wallet, don't spend it, put it somewhere in a bag, wherever, and just change the habit. Now, if that can be done, well, it's not hard to change habits from doing any other thing, well, like not buying a new car or not having emotional spending or et cetera, et cetera. That's what I got away from that.
And that's exactly what it is. It's behavioral change. And once you start doing that, you said, I can do it. And that's why we start with such a small amount. Because if I had said put $100 away, you're going to say, I got to work so hard to find $100. But just a dollar, everybody can come up with $1. And it really helps with the positive change that will affect.
Yeah, like I said, I did have quite a few individuals call me and wanted to know if I was doing it. And, I was surprised because I knew I wanted to do it and I was going to do it. But I didn't think that others would, want to be a part of doing it. And like I said, some kind of incentive, motivational at the end, whether to win a buy to lose a lunch or to lose a buy, whatever. We figure something out.
We will, and I like to have fun, so
Absolutely.
Fun has to be in the middle.
Okay. All right. So we're here again on the live with Yvonne Mitto, financial expert, and we're going to be going through. So here's what I think we're going to. We were talking earlier tonight. We're gonna talk about money habits money from a practical point of view.
Correct.
All right, because it's not enough just to have the information.
You got to do something with it.
You have to do something with the information that we have. So we're going to talk about it from a practical point of view, things that we can all do, or even in this downtime, in this pandemic where money seemed to be probably a little on the tight side or the low side. Well, like we had mentioned last week and earlier, that no money has left the planet.
It's still here.
Isn't that something, huh?
It is.
It is still here. Not a dollar has left the planet.
Not at all.
Wow.
It's right here.
It's right here. All right. So, couple questions before you get into the practical aspect of money management, just for myself or maybe for anybody else that's out there. My question first would be, if you're in debt right now, what are the do's and don'ts?
Okay.
If you're in debt, Rev, Bishop, I'm up to my head. I can't, you're talking about $1. What are the do's and don'ts?
Okay. First of all, and I just want to go back a little from last week. Someone had asked about credit cards.
Okay.
And what I did was I called one of the credit card companies just to say, if I'm in a bind right now, what can you do for me?
In regards to relief. Okay.
Right. Exactly. Because while I was talking about what some of the reliefs, that was one that came up. And what I found out, I called one of the credit card companies, and they said that company is skipping payments for 3 months.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have to worry about 3 months. However, it's still there. So it's not gone. It's still there. You'll pay it, but it's just further down the line. Interest will continue to accumulate. They make sure they said that. So while you're not paying for 3 months, you're still accumulating interest. However, it will not show up on your credit score that you miss payments.
Got you.
It will just be a blank, and nothing will show up. So that's what I found out. So for those who have credit cards, don't run away from the creditors. Run to them. And they all know about the situation, and they are willing to help as much as they can. But again, remember, it's not forgiveness; it's just postponement.
Postpone, big difference.
Yeah, big difference.
So, and that's just one credit card you had inquired about. So it's probably safe to say most, if not all, the credit card companies were doing something similar.
I would say whatever company you're with, just pick up the phone and call. And I mentioned to the person on the other line today, I said, I'm just curious about this. And that's what they told me. But I would say, instead of running away from them and saying, I can't pay, there's nothing I can do, really call them, because sometimes they'll give you some relief.
And unlike the utility companies, they're not coming to you. Because I think that was mandated by the government.
That's government.
By the governor,
right, yeah.
Saying that no shut-off, rent, mortgages, what have you.
Correct.
Well, rent and no foreclosures, what have you. But it's good that you be proactive.
It's very important that people be proactive and call their credit card companies if they do have that.
Absolutely.
And if they have a balance. I'm hoping many people don't. But for those who do have and have to make a payment, it's important that they call the credit card companies.
Okay.
They will work with them.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so back to our question. You're in debt. I'm in debt. We're in debt. What am I doing that I'm not supposed to be doing, or what should I be doing now?
Okay.
Practical.
Some practical stuff.
Absolutely.
And, as we're talking through, I said last week we gave a whole lot of information. Hopefully people had jot them down and start to apply. But this year we want to get down to how do we actually do it?
Because, again, information without application leads to
frustration.
Did you hear that? Information without application leads to frustration. So we don't just want you to give the information just for giving its sake.
Correct.
We want it to be applicable, and we want you to apply it, or else you're going to be frustrated. We don't want. All right,
Correct.
Sounds good.
And as they apply it, and teach it to others, teach it to the young people, start with the kids if you have kids, so that if something like this again happens, the kids won't go through it the way we went through it.
As you mentioned that with kids, I think, I don't know who's responsible, but someone done a disservice to us. I'm not going to say parents or teachers or principals or Sunday school teachers. Where did we learn to handle money?
I can tell you I learned from my dad, and I learned the hard way. But there are courses now, which, thank God, there are courses now being that can happen in schools. My desire is to see it being taught in churches as much as possible, so that, because we understand it not only from the practical side, but from the biblical side. And that's when you can really say, oh, this is what God requires of me, and this is what I'm going to do.
And you probably agree with me by saying the earlier the better, because if I'm, let's say, 14, 15, I can work at McDonald's or Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts while I'm in high school, making a little bit of change. I can buy my own sneakers, I can buy my own, and we're not thinking of saving, or investing. We're thinking of buying. So the earlier we learn, it's be better for us, because again, it's a habit that will develop over a
developing
period of
habit.
time.
Correct. And I can share what I did my husband and I have 3 children, and when they were, I would say about 5 years old, we gave them 3 envelopes. One that says giving, one says saving, and one said spending.
What age were these kids at the time?
About 5
Okay.
or 6 at that time.
Wow.
And they grew up with their 3 envelopes. And you may say, how did they turn out? Well, one is a giver. He'll give away everything.
Wow.
And he pays his bill. He makes sure he pays his bill, but he's just a giver. My youngest, he's a saver. If you borrow 5 cents from him,
He want it back.
he's coming back. If it's even a penny, he's going to say, Mom, you did borrow a penny. And my daughter is really balanced. So
Okay.
they grew up differently, and with what we taught them, they all take it in different ways.
Here's a question before we go on. I know you're going to answer the question.
Yeah.
Not me personally, but someone has a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old. You started at 5. Is it too late?
No.
Especially if they, again, working at McDonald's, working at Dunkin' Donuts, have a little bit of money. 5 is very early, and that's quite early, which is
that's
good.
early. Yeah.
But 10, 12, 13, 14, how do you go to a 10, 12-year-old and say, no, give me your money and this is what you're going to do with it? That's kind of hard.
Well, what you do is you start learning the principles and then just share it. And not even as if you're teaching them, but just share it and say, here's what it has done for me, because since I started, here's what happened. Since I started saving my dollar bill, here's what happened. And it's best to do that. So you don't just go and say, you have to.
Okay.
I'm from Jamaica too. You're from Jamaica. And many times you'll say, this is what you got to do. Well, these kids nowadays, you tell them that, they're looking at you saying, okay, I'll do it right now, but I'm not going to do it whenever I'm not before you.
Right.
So it's really how you approach that will help the kids. And that helps even as they are getting into high school and going into college. They'll be able to manage what they have and manage it well.
Okay, great. Thank you so very much. All right, so let's go back to the question. I'm in debt. We're in debt. He's in debt. She's in debt. What do we do?
Everybody's in debt.
Everybody's in debt. But wait a minute. Is there good debt and bad debt? Or that's a whole different subject. Let's leave that alone. Let's talk about debt in general.
Yeah, let's just talk about debt right now. And the first thing I would say, and I just want to say that debt is really consuming a lot of people right now. There's an author, Austin Pryor, who is the author of Sound Mind Investing. He said most debt problems result from an excess in spending, not a lack of income. So it's not because I don't make enough, that's why I'm in debt. It's really what you do with what you make. So it's really about how you spend what you make. And debt really takes toll on us financially, emotionally, and relationally. I mean, if you ask, and even spiritually, and if you ask husbands and wives, what's the main thing they fuss about? Money. And Proverbs 22:7 says, just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is servant to the lender. It's so important that we understand that when we are debtors, we're in servitude to the people who lend us. And as children of God, we should not be servant to anyone except servant to the Lord. So the first thing, where I would begin, I would say the first thing is to pray. Ask God for help and guidance in the journey. If you want to become debt-free, and I can tell you, a lot of people are doing this all around the country and having debt-free celebration. It's happening. So we can do it. No matter how much income you earn, you can do it. So it's important to spend time with God. Listen to Him. Seek Him for wisdom and for guidance, and allow Him to minister to you. And He will help you. He will guide you. God knows the desires of our hearts. And if we start there, He will work with us and work us through. So that's the first thing. We really have to seek God's guidance first and get on our knees. The second thing is to pay our debt. And you're going to say, well, I'm in debt, so how are you telling me to pay my debt? Well, if you just start putting a little aside to do it, start with the $1, the $10, the $5, and work towards it. If you have, let's say for credit card, for example, if you have a balance on a credit card for $200, you're not supposed to use a credit card anyway,
Right.
unless you know you have the money to pay at the end of the month. But let's say you use that, and you have $200, and they said that Mr. Discover, Mr. Visa said, all you're required to pay is $20.
Right.
If you can pay more than that $20,
Mm-hmm.
if you can't pay the $200 that you owe, but they said pay the 20, pay 25 or 30.
Don't pay the minimum.
Don't pay the minimum, because when you pay the minimum, you're paying forever, and the amount you're paying maybe is twice as much as you had owed. So that's what happens. I love credit card. I love to use credit card, but at the end of the month, I write the check for what I pay, what I use, and that's really discipline. Because if you don't know, you're not supposed to use credit card just for discretionary stuff. You make sure it's a need, and you had planned to do it. So when you use it, come the end of the month, you pay off. But if you can't do that, just put a little on top of what you need to pay.
Now, you're not referring to, you're talking about a credit card, not a debit card, because of course there's a difference. A debit card
Correct.
is just like cash, your own money.
Debit card is your own money.
Credit card is
Credit
not
card
yours.
is not your money.
That's why you're paying.
You're paying the amount in addition to interest. If you don't
Okay.
pay it off at the end of the month, interest is going to be calculated on it. And that's why this company says, oh, we won't, you don't have to pay within the 3 months, but we're still calculating interest
'Cause
on
that's
it.
how they make the money.
That's how they make the
Because
money.
they loaned you money
Correct.
at a price, at a cost.
Correct.
Okay, well, I
and
understand.
it's so important to pay attention to the interest rate, because the interest rates are out the door.
Oof.
And many times we don't look at that. It's important to look at the interest rate you're
Because
paying.
it's in the fine print.
It is in the fine print, but it's so important to read the fine prints.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. The third thing I would say is begin to use a plan. Don't just, many times if I say, how much money do you spend per month? 9 times out of 10, people say, I don't know. But if you write it down, you will know. So keep a record. I always ask people to keep, when I'm working with them, I said for the next 30 days, document everything you spend your money on. Because it's interesting at the end to see what you spend. You're like, oh, I didn't know I do that. Oh, did I buy that? Did I need that? And after a while, you start saying, okay, I don't need that. I don't need that. And you start talking about need now instead of wants and desires. So I would say don't use credit card unless it's a need. And that's the last resort if you have to. Or you can use it and pay it off at the end of the month. I call that OPM, other people's money.
Okay.
So you just use it. At the end of the month, you pay it off. You don't pay any interest on it. So it's like free money.
So you're saying, again, this is behavioral change.
Correct.
So for the next 30 days or for 30 days or however long, make a record of every penny that is spent, every dime, everything that is purchased, everything.
Everything.
Coffee, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts,
Everything.
gas.
Yep. Just document it. Today is the 15th. On the 15th, I buy gas, $10. I went to Dunkin' Donuts and get me my nice donut. Well, $1.50.
Did my nails over the weekend?
I get my nails done. Did I plan for it? So, and nothing is wrong with buying the Starbucks. Nothing is wrong with getting your nails done and your hair done and all that. But if you have the money to do it, why not? You can do it. And then if you have the money, it's a choice. You may say, I don't want to do that.
Now, you, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept or the analogy, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Is that a good thing? Because,
No.
well, I got to get my nails done, but, I'm taking away from this over here or car money or kids money or whatever, because nails can be, I'm not talking about me, I'm just saying in general. Nails can be a need. I'm going out to work or I'm going to a function or whatever. Are you saying don't do it because I don't have the money for it?
No. I'm saying do it if you would like to, but plan for it.
Okay.
So function is coming up.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay?
Nothing catch you by surprise.
Right. You buy your dress, you buy your shoes. The nails is going to be a part of that. Add that to it too. And then go get your nails done as much as you would like.
So it's all about the planning, not spontaneous purchasing, or
Correct.
that's the idea.
Correct. And when you're going into a store, if you need something and you said, this is what I'm going to go get. You go into the store, you get what you
That's not
need,
possible.
and then It is possible.
I'm a guy, and I'm saying that's not possible because maybe it is. There's always, because obviously I shop at a men's store, and
Right.
I know what I want.
Hmm.
Again, it's behavioral change. I know what I want, but there's always something that looks good and maybe not too expensive. I can afford it, but I didn't plan for it.
Hmm.
Is that the behavioral change you're saying that we have to, or can I purchase it if I know I'm going to use a card, but if I know by the end of the month I can pay for it? What are you saying?
And I'm going back to answer the question: is that a need, a want, or a desire?
A little bit of both, or all. Probably not a need, because if I went in there for whatever, a pair
It
of
wasn't
shoes,
on your radar.
it wasn't on my radar, wasn't on my list.
So it's not a need.
It's not a need.
Okay, so it's a want or a desire.
What if I can afford the want or the desire?
If you can't afford it and you want it, it's up to you. But the question you can also ask is, what else could I be doing with this money?
Okay. Makes sense.
So if you start practicing that discipline, the money doesn't go. You always hear people say, "Oh, but I thought I had this $10 bill in my pocket. I don't know where it went." But if you know exactly what you're buying, how much it costs, all that, you'll know where your $10 bill goes.
Got you.
So it's really developing the discipline and putting it into practice. And I'm not going to say it's going to be easy when you start.
Right.
But once you continue doing it, it becomes now a habit, and that's how you'll operate. I can now go into a store, walk in, buy a pair of shoes, and step right back out.
Because you've been doing it for so long.
I've been doing it for so long, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So we did do's and don'ts. I'm in debt.
Right.
Okay.
So list your assets, what you own. List your liabilities. That's what you owe. Just to make sure you have an accurate picture of what your financial situation looks like. Because many times we don't. We just said, "Oh, we're in debt. I think we owe $20,000." Well, if you just think, because if you think you owe 20 and it's on credit cards and all that, it may be more than 20. So how do you have a true picture of your financial situation? It's really taking that picture of where am I right now. And I can tell you, sometimes it's going to be hard because you're like, you don't realize how much until you put it down on paper and actually look at it. So it's important to get an accurate picture of where you are right now.
I'm a single parent, 3 kids, struggling. Come on, I'm trying to just make sure food's on the table and the rent's paid. Do you really think I can do that?
Well, if you can't, you're going to work towards it. But many times we said we can't. But if we start putting things on paper and say, what can I cut? Okay. What do I not need at this moment? And I'm going to live within my means, not follow what everybody else is doing. This is how I'm going to live my life. And you start planning that way, you'd be amazed.
My kids don't need new Jordans because the neighbors got, or because their cousin got new Jordans. I don't need.
Or my kids are not getting Jordans because they can't afford it.
Oh. Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
And that's a lesson for the kids too. Is why do you need a Jordan? Because everybody else have it. That's why you don't give it to them.
So the question is not having it, but the why.
The why behind it.
Explain that a little bit more.
Well, if a child sees someone has something and just say, I want that. And you said, oh, yeah, because the neighbor's son has it, so I'm going to give it to you. That's the wrong message you're saying to the kid.
Even if I could afford to?
Even if you can afford it. So always ask the why. Oh, he had that, my kids used to play soccer, so he has that soccer ball. I need that one. And my question is, why do you need that one? And if he says to me, well, I like it because I need it because here is how long it takes me to get around with this ball and all that stuff, then I may say, okay, so you can use it out of your allowance. But anyway, it may be okay. But if you said, oh, because Philip has that, then I'll say you're not getting it.
What do you say to parents that, because I've heard it many times, I want to give my child or my children a better life than I had. You know, we struggled. We had one pair of shoes. We had to share clothes. We had 3, 4 people in one bedroom, what have you, what have. I want to give my child a better life. Is that wrong to think or say that?
Not wrong if you can afford to.
So it boils down to affordability.
You don't put yourself in debt just to say I didn't have it, so therefore I'm gonna just lavish it on my kids because I didn't. I just grew up with one pair of shoes, so they may right now they should have 10. Because if that you send that message to the kids, they in turn will send it to their kids also. And one of the things, especially in our Black community, is that we don't talk a lot about legacy.
Mm-hmm. Truly.
So every generation has to start all over again. And when how are we going to stop that? And sometimes we just got to say no.
Say that again. And can you please elaborate? Because, you know, I was thinking about that some time ago, and it is so true. And that's primarily our cultural people.
Correct.
We're not throwing any shade on anybody else, but we seem to always start over again, and there's nothing left for the next generation to come down for them to at least get a head start.
Which is a sad part. So and that's the truth. If you watch what happens, that's exactly what happens. All the people, they will, there's something for them to get. So my thing is, instead of spending the money on Jordans, what else can I do with that so later on they can benefit from it? So really thinking through that, and the clothes go away so quickly. They wear it 2 times. Spend $100, they wear it 2 times. They just lay it aside because they need something shiner and brighter. So that is gone. And then we continue to give it, and we give it out of need because we don't have it, but we're still going to give it because of this notion that our kids have to live better than we do. And I love if our kids live better, but not in that way. I would prefer to save that money, put it in their education fund, because that will sort of guarantee a better life for them.
Absolutely. Okay, great. All righty. So are we going to get into the practical aspect of money matters now?
How they do it, yeah.
Okay, so let's do that.
Right. So now another thing I want to say is when it comes to debt, because many times we have the debt, so we put it down on paper, we see where we are. Mm-hmm. We have to make a decision. What are we going to do now? Now that we have the full picture, we know what it looks like. Now, what next? And that's when, as I started by saying, make sure you're seeking God on it. And God knows the desires of our heart. And our $20 can be God $200.
That's right.
If our heart is where it is. So we need to not leave God out of the picture, put it down on paper, and then start working towards doing something about it. And I know you're going to say, well, in this pandemic,
No.
Can we do that? Well, I'm going back to the dollar bills. We're going to save the dollar bills through this pandemic, and then the money that some people save, they can put it towards
behavioral
debt.
change. That's really what it is. Not even about $1 or $20.
Right, exactly.
Behavioral change.
Right.
So I think we had mentioned this last week. You had mentioned that we should live on 80%. If I make $100 a week, $80, I should be able to live on 80. Correct?
Or plan to live on 80.
Or plan to
Right.
live on 80.
You may not be able because you may say it's so much. But as you start putting plans in place to reduce what you don't need and say, okay, that's what I'm going to live on. I'm going to cut this back. You can do it with that. You'll be able to make it happen.
Let's go back to the assets for a second. So I have, let's say, throw a number out, $60,000 worth of debt. Mm-hmm. I have a car that's being financed, probably $30,000. Still paying on this for probably another 5 years or so. In eliminating debt, would you suggest that I get rid of that car, get a car that's less expensive, or just pay it off until it's paid off.
If you'd asked me before you buy that car, then I would give you a different answer.
I didn't know you before I bought the car. I'm just hypothetically,
I know,
by
yeah,
the way.
I know.
Right.
I'm just joking around.
You would have
I
suggested
would have
what?
suggested let's say you're going to buy a car. And you said, I have $20,000 and I need a car. And I said, what type of car are you going to buy? He said, it's going to cost $30,000. I said, do you need a $30,000 car? Because again, what's the purpose of a car? Take you from point A to point B without breaking down.
Okay.
That's the purpose of a car. So if you have the money to buy it, go buy it. And if that's what you choose to do, maybe I wouldn't, but maybe you choose to do that. You save, and you now have your $30,000. You said, I have been saving for this. I don't see anything wrong with that. But when you go on a car lot and you buy a brand new car, let's say you
Which
buy
is a no-no, ever.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, you can do it if you would like to, but let me tell you, when you go in a car, you buy the car, and it's $40,000. A red car, the exact car that you were looking for, and then you drive it out the gate, and you said, "This is not what I really want. I need something else." It depreciates right away.
If I bring the car back tomorrow,
Maybe, and don't hold me to this one. Maybe just as you turn around.
wow.
But anyway, let's say tomorrow you bring it back.
I do understand depreciate.
Right.
Mhm.
Right away.
Now, this is something that I've always, mentioned to people that never, ever buy a brand new car.
Brand new car.
Oh, but I want the smell,
I need to smell it,
and
right.
the leather. I want to be the first one around the steering wheel. I think that's emotional spending
Yes.
or emotional purchasing. Your emotion is tied to it. And so the idea is I was always told that whatever moves or spins, has wheels on it, depreciates if it's moving.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your house won't necessarily depreciate.
No.
It depends on the market.
Depends on the
time.
market and
Because-
the area.
And the area,
Correct.
absolutely. So it's always a better investment. But cars are not necessarily better investment. You can buy a decent car, but let somebody else handle the depreciation.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's
so,
correct.
Rich people, I don't think they buy brand new cars, do they?
Oh, let's I wonder if we can throw out a survey. A little
Okay,
bit.
go ahead.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
So there was a survey. Let me see if I find that. It was asked of millionaires
Mhm.
what they do. There were 3 questions that was asked. Let me see if I find that. I'm going to do that right now. So they asked millionaires these questions. What's the most you ever spend on a pair of shoes? And we would really like to see some interaction on this one, because
Okay.
I'm going to ask those who are listening the same question. So the first question is, what's the most you ever spent on a pair of shoes?
Now, these are people with all the money in the world, millionaires.
Millionaires.
Never go broke.
These
Okay.
are millionaires.
Mhm.
What's the most they ever spend on a pair of jeans? And what's the whether or not any of them, the ones that they were talking to, ever purchase a new car? So I'm going to ask that question to the listeners, and if they could just send that information in, I would be so curious to see. Again, the questions are: what's the most you ever spent on a pair of shoes?
These are questions for millionaires.
For millionaires, and now
Right.
I'm asking it to
Okay.
those listening.
Mhm.
What's the most you ever spent on a pair of jeans?
Mhm.
And have you ever purchased a new car?
Mhm.
So if they could get into the feed and sort of give us some response, and then later on I'll compare our answers with the millionaires' answers.
All right, so here's a question again, and there's no prize for this, by the way. You're not giving nothing away. All right, so survey was given to millionaires, and 3 questions. Number 1, what's the most, question to millionaires, what's the most they paid for a pair of shoes? Number 1. Number 2, what's the most money they spent for a pair of jeans? Number 3, did you ever buy a brand new car? I think I know the answer to the last one. I'm not going to say it, though. So here's the question. Here's the thing. Throw it in your comments. Let's see if you're right. Because you're thinking a millionaire's got all the money in the world. Why not?
Correct.
Why not? Why not?
Why not?
You can buy the Gap
Correct.
or Forever 21, wherever they sell jeans.
Let's
or
do
clothes.
some comparison.
Okay.
Of that.
All right.
I'm
So
really curious.
give me your answers. Put your answers in the comments. Now, there are no prizes. We just want to know what you think. You may be surprised. All right. We'll pick it up in a little while. All right. Continue.
Okay. So let me put that aside, and until the answers come in, I love that. I know it's going to be interesting. So we talk about beginning to make sure you have the written plan, and don't add any additional debt. No new debt while you're going through this process. What they're doing is evaluating to say,
Okay.
where am I? So you said, where am I and where do I need to be? And in order to be where you want to be, these are some of the things that you have to do. So don't take on any new debt.
No additional debt.
No additional debt at all. And if you can earn extra income during the time, earn it, but don't just earn it and put it back into your regular type of spending.
Mm-hmm.
Use that in earned income to help pay off your debt.
Reduce your debt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's important to do that.
So again, the purpose of a second job is not necessarily to go on vacation
Up
or
your
buy
lifestyle.
whatever. It's to reduce
Your
your
debt.
debt.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And another one is be content with what you have.
That's
Because
easier
many
said than done.
times we always try to keep up with the Joneses.
But you know what I always said? The Jones are broke. They broke, you know.
There's a story about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We trying to keep up with the Jones. They broke.
They are broke. Exactly. and when you find out, and then the Joneses sort of realize they're broke and start do something about it, while we keep trying to keep up with them, and then we're in debt, and they get out of debt because
Gotcha.
they come to the point where they said we're broke, and I have to do something about it. So they start doing something about it, and you're still keeping up with them, but now they're in a better position because they're doing something about it.
Absolutely.
So don't do that at all. Doesn't make sense. And also consider a radical change in your lifestyle. Maybe you have to downsize. Maybe you have to turn in that really nice car that you bought and think, oh, this is paradise. But you may have to change your lifestyle. And I know a lot of people don't want to do that. But that's something, if you say, I really want to get out of debt, maybe that's something you got to do. Maybe if you have a 5-bedroom home and you're in a whole lot of debt, maybe you have to downsize to a 3-bedroom home and put two whatever size bed in one room. Many times we buy homes so big and just for us to run around in. And then we said, oh, we need a bedroom for our visitors. I was just talking to a cousin of mine in Florida. She's moving from one area to the next. And she said, and I said, what size home are you looking for? And she said, a 5-bedroom. And I said, tell me why. She said, so when someone comes, I said, okay.
No one ever comes.
Let me educate you a little bit. No one ever comes. And even if someone comes, hotel, or you buy a sofa bed, you pull it out, and they sleep. I said, you don't want to pay taxes and insurance and all that for someone who may visit. And she bought a home, but she bought a 3-bedroom. And she said, thank you so much, Auntie June, for telling me that.
Wow.
I said, Auntie June, that's my pet name. But right now she's moving this weekend, and she is just loving it because she didn't have to pay all that money for a 5-bedroom home just to say, just in case you come to Florida, you'll have somewhere to stay. I said, there's a hotel. I said, no.
Absolutely.
So things like that, we do that a lot without even thinking. And it's great thinking. You're thinking about your relatives. But is that realistic? And that's the key. That's the most important thing.
Got you. Okay.
Next, need some more?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Practicals.
One of the things you don't want to do is no matter where you are, don't give up.
Okay.
Because many times we get so frustrated and we say, there's nothing we can do. It's so important that we really put the plan in place, start working the plan we put in place, and making sure that we're going, and we call that steady plotting. It's not going to happen overnight. As you put these in place, one at a time, you put your budget together, because that's the most important thing. Make sure you have your budget together so you know where you're going, where you are, where you're going, and how you're going to plan to get there. So those are some of the key things that we need to do.
So basically, it's in the planning.
It's in the planning.
Planning.
And praying. So the 2 P's, pray, plan. And then you execute. Pray, plan, execute. And that will happen. So let's look at some of the don'ts.
Okay.
Okay. So don't focus on what you can control. There are things out of our control. Right now, we're in the pandemic. There's nothing we can do about it.
At all.
So don't keep saying, I wish, I wonder if, and using those words. You cannot control them. And this is when we need to know that God is in control of everything. This, what happens, did not surprise God. He is in control of everything. He's our steward. And so as we put our plan together, put our budget together, stick to it, don't bother worry about the things that are uncontrollable.
Speaking
Just
of the
work the
pandemic,
plan.
can I ask you a question in regards to the stimulus money, which I think most everybody's going to get? Is that correct? Most everybody? What are your thoughts and suggestion? Because now you're going to have an extra $1,200 or whatever
$1,200.
if you have children.
If you have kids, you may have a whole lot of money. If you have 4 kids, I think it's $600 each. So
Now,
yeah,
isn't this an
it's-
opportunity for me to buy something I always wanted?
Not at all. I hope not. I hope this is an opportunity, or we see this as an opportunity for us to pay off if we're in debt. If we don't have any debt, you can go buy. And maybe if you don't even want to do that because so many people are hurting, so maybe we want to give.
Mm.
So we can do that also. But if you're in debt and you get your $1,200, and I'm speaking directly to everyone now, don't just spend that money. This is not the time to go find what I think I desire. This is a time to really use that money to pay off your debt if you're in debt.
What are your thoughts on saving that money because you never know what's going to happen down the road
Well,
or the next 2 to 3 months?
Well, I would say, okay, if you don't want to pay off the debt right away, put it aside. But I can tell you, if you like to spend, you would think you're going to put it down, but you're going to end up spending it. So the key is not just to say, okay, I know I need this. I don't know what is going to happen, so I'm going to put it aside. What you need to say is, I'm going to save it and I'm not touching it, or I'm not going to be tempted to use it just to spend for anything. If I know I'm going to do that, take it and pay off the debt, and that's what I would do.
What are your thoughts on, I forgot the numbers, but we're saying that, I don't remember the numbers, but a good majority of these jobs are not coming back, especially small businesses. So for someone who's laid off right now and still getting whatever they're getting, it's very possible 2 to 3 months or however long, that person may not have a job. So having that money as a savings or an emergency, if you will, could always be a plus, would you not say?
I would say it's a plus as long as they're not using it, they're not spending it. Yes, I would say either set it aside if there are uncertainties, or pay off your debt. But don't use it just to spend, to say, I have extra dollars here, so I'm going to spend it. So that's what I would encourage people to do, not to just go ahead and spend it, but also you can hold on to it just in case. And yes, many of the jobs, I don't think many of the jobs are going to come back as they are. But I would say that now is a great time to pivot. Now is a great time to say, what else can I do? And don't get frustrated. Don't say there's nothing I can do. There is always something that we can do if we focus on that.
Plan.
Plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are
Because
other...
many times we keep things in our head, right?
True,
And
true, absolutely.
If you're like me, I walk out and I said, what did I just say I was going to do? And that is happening to me right now, I think. Sometimes I do that and I'm like, I don't think so.
I always try to write it down. Write it down so at least you can go back to it.
Correct.
Because again, there's a possibility that you can forget.
The iPhones are wonderful. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I just put my notes in. I
Absolutely,
love that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are other dues? We have a few questions. We're going to get to them in just a second. What other dues, don'ts rather?
The don'ts that I have. Don't stop giving if you can. And I know many people are saying, what? I don't have any money and you're telling me don't stop giving? Well, out of the $1,200 that they get, we should tithe, right? We can still tithe. So don't stop giving. Look for any opportunity you can to be generous and give. Because many people, we may think we're so bad, and many people are worse off than we are. So don't give up on that. Be generous and give if you can. You may not be able to give as much as you used to give, but I know all of us can do something. We can give something. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And I mentioned this before, don't hide from your creditors, run to your creditors. If you're having problems that you to pay them, you owe them, don't hide from them, talk with them. I truly believe that they're willing to work with you. And don't ignore what God may be saying to you. Spend time to listen to God. That is so important. Ask Him for His guidance, ask Him for His wisdom, and allow Him to work in your life even in this time. So the key is to take those practical steps and making sure God is at the center of everything that you do. And it would be amazing because He knows the desires of our hearts. He knows what we need to do. And as we reach out to Him, He will not leave us alone through this process. So those are some of the key things.
Okay, great. Do you want to? Okay, the questions for the millionaires. I had a few comments. You want to deal with those now, or wait a little while longer?
Okay. Let's go ahead and get the answers for that.
So about 4 individual made comments. Mm-hmm. So for the sneakers and the millionaires, wow, this is amazing.
The shoes?
The shoes.
Uh-huh.
Oh, shoes, yeah.
Yeah.
One individual said $160. I know that's wrong.
That they pay for it?
The millionaire.
No. It was for them to say how much they have ever paid. And then I will compare it with what the millionaires do.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, you're correct. You're correct. So I have one person said $160. Mm-hmm. One person said $30. That's for the shoes. Most still pay. Okay. Now the cars, never buy a new car.
Okay.
Never buy a new car. Buy a 3-year-old car. So these are the responses I have.
Okay. So
on the cars, never buy a new car, which is correct. Never buy a new car.
Right.
And 3-year-old car.
Okay.
And on the shoes, 160, and I just had 2 people commented on that, 160 and 30.
And 30 for the jeans?
Yes.
What about the jeans? 30? Okay. So they are, for the most they spend on shoes, for the millionaires, $50. The most they spend on jeans, $30. So whomever said that got it right on the
$30.
$30 on jeans. Yeah.
So let me ask you, a millionaire, what's the rationale behind that? What's the idea behind that? Because you could buy, again, the whole store. Mm-hmm. What's the idea?
I think that's the key. They can buy anything they want. So they don't see their value tied up in a pair of jeans. Because many times we buy things is just to say, we can do this. So the millionaires don't look at that to say, oh, it's I wear $80 pair of jeans. That means I am who I am. They just go about their business doing what they're doing to make more millions, right?
So could it be that they look at it as not a good investment? Or do they look at it from an investment point of view, buying a pair of shoes or buying jeans?
I think for millionaires, they look at it from everything from an investment point of view. How much, if I buy this, it's going to go away. But if I invest this, and I talk to a lot of people who are in that category, and it's amazing. I can give you an example. There was a young lady, I was at a meeting, and I said to her, she came in with this beautiful fur coat, fur jacket. And I said, wow, this is so nice. And we started chit-chatting. She's a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, and I'm not going to mention the place, but it was a consignment store. Mm-hmm. And I said, what? In my mind, you're buying something from a consignment store? But here's the rationale behind it. Many times we go out and we buy dresses, for example. How many times can we wear that one dress to the functions that we need to go? Many times we just wear it once, right?
Right.
So what they do is, instead of investing $300, what they do is they actually just invest $30, then they can take it back and give it away or whatever, and then they can go buy another one. Different mindset.
But a $30 dress is not the same as a $300 dress. Come on now.
They know where to find the $300 dress for $30.
Okay.
We don't. They do.
True.
So, and that's what they do. That's how they live.
So their mindset as far as money is different from ours.
Totally different. What they focus on a lot is building business. And that's their mindset, and that's the way they live. And we can do that too if we change our focus.
Okay. All right, so I have a few questions coming in. You want to go with those for now?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. So question number one. In regards to purchasing a house, what if you want to buy a house with room for your parents down the road? That's a question.
Down the road? Okay.
However far down the road is, I don't know. Someone's thinking about buying a house and they want to make sure they have room or space for their parents later on in life, I guess.
And that's a great thing to aspire to. But timing is really important, because if your parents will not be with you for 10 years, is it worth that that investment right now? Because can you imagine if you save that extra money for 10 years, what you could do? You could sell that home and buy a bigger home later on.
Okay, so
timing is important.
Timing.
Yeah.
So again, I get it. So if your parents, let's say your parents are in the 60s or 65 and God willing they live another 10, 15 years, you have time because it's timing. So it's not a good thing to buy that house now.
I would not at this
Makes
time.
sense.
I would save the money and then later on I sell that home and buy another home.
Okay.
Because you're now building equity in the home that you're living in right now. And then you're able to use that and buy another home. That's what I would do.
Okay. Here's another question. What happens when you own a car and you still owe money? I don't understand that. I think what it's saying is you have a car, because I've seen this many times, and it's upside down, I think they call it. Or even a home.
You owe more than it's worth. Yeah. So that's what it's called, upside down. Yeah.
What can you do with that?
If you're upside down, there's hardly anything you can do except you're going to be on the losing side when that
So
comes
in real estate, you can ride that out. Or can you?
You can write out the
Because
storm.
the market,
Yeah.
well, on a car.
There's nothing you can do. And that's why, for me, I don't buy new cars. Because once you go in and you smell the leather, and after that, it's not worth what you just pay for it.
Okay.
So.
Someone wants to know more specifically, what did you taught your daughter in regards to money?
Oh, not only my daughter. I taught my 3 children about money. And as I said, I learned it the hard way thanks to my dad. And just a story about college and spending money to buy a gold watch and didn't have it. And my dad, who doesn't say no to me, or did not, he has passed now, decided that he wasn't going to send me any money until I pay off for that watch, and I did. And so I learned that lesson. So when I started having children, I decided that they're going to learn about money. And I was very passionate about finances at that time. So we started with the envelope, and if they are going to buy something, they make sure that they have the money. And as they're growing, my daughter and my 2 sons, as they're growing up, what we do, my husband and I, we decided that we are not going to be the parent who buy them their cars and all that stuff. They're going to save for it. If we're going on vacation, they save for their vacation. And everyone has spending money when they go on vacation. And if you use it one day, then it's gone. If you save it and you have it for a long time, then that's up to you. So those are the principles that we sort of taught them. We make sure they understand giving is important, and even now they still give. So that's some of the things that we did with our kids as my husband and I sort of navigate through this financial stuff. And we said a lot of no's to them. We did not say yes to them all the time. They get a whole lot of no's, and they know when they need to buy something, they save and then buy. We don't, there was no credit card purchase with them. We didn't give our kids credit card. As a matter of fact, we give each child at the age of 16 a credit card. They get a Discover card, and every month when the bill comes in, we would look around and we would get around the table, and I would go through and said, "Whose is this?" And they said, "Me, mine." "Whose is this?" "Mine." And I said, "May I have the cash?" And that sort of helped them to say, "Ooh, when I use it, I have to pay." So they use it, and even to this day, they still have that principle. So they do not keep balances on their credit card.
Wow.
They paid off at the end of the month.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let me ask you now, because that obviously came from you being instrumental very early in your children's life. You said 5.
Yeah,
That's
I was very
amazing.
intentional. Yeah.
I'm still looking at mom, this parent, single parent with 2, 3, 4 kids, what have you, single mom, 2, 3 jobs. That's difficult. Maybe not impossible.
Not right. I would say it may be difficult, but we have to say what is important to us. And I'm not saying don't have your job and then focus on doing this. But what I'm saying is try to merge both. Even one day a week, we all sit together. We share together. So it's important at that time to really instill the values that you need for the children.
So for a parent out there now that has, let's say, a 4-year-old, 5-year, because sooner or later they're going to know about money. And sometimes it's sooner than later.
Sooner than later.
You know,
Yep.
McDonald's, they know how to say McDonald's before they can say whatever. It's amazing. So for this child at 4, 5, 6, I think that's ideal for any parent. That's really an ideal time to start. You know, again, like I said before, 10, 11, 12, not impossible, but I think it's a little harder, especially they're handling their own monies, you know, working at Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's, and, you know, even if it's $50 or $60 a week, it's kind of like, you know, this is mine, I work for this kind of thing, you know what I mean? So I think for any parent out there, really, and like we said last week, it's the behavioral change, whether it's $1,
Yeah.
which isn't very much, or a quarter. And I think that's a great idea. Because, again, you want to effect change. We don't want to go through the same cycle over and over and over. Because I thought about this some time ago. Let's say even if you're making $100,000 a year. That sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a whole lot of money, because even at a young age, because think about this. Sooner or later, you want to upgrade.
Yeah.
Sooner or later. You're driving this little, you want to drive something else. You live in this neighborhood, you want to live someplace else. Now, your cost of living is going up, your taxes and everything. So that $100,000 or the $120,000 now, what is that now?
Exactly. And here's the thing. There are people making $100,000 that are in dire straits right now than people who are making maybe 30, 40,000.
Wow.
Because they did not learn the principles. What they did was they make the money, they spend the money. And now crisis hits. While other people who learn the principles, they set aside a little, and right now they can sort of weather the storm. So it's not the amount that we make, it's what we do with the amount that we make.
I have one more question. We're gonna wind down. I have one more question. Okay, so this person wants to know, what do you do about a child who's wasted inherited money that was probably set aside for college, and who's responsible for this? Is it the parent, because whether grandparents left money or handed money down and was it given to the child too early or wasted? It's just got wasted. I mean, who's at fault?
Well, it depends on the age of the child. My question would be, how old is the child? Number two, when the money was being handed down, how was that determined? Because if I'm the child's parent and the child is 14, 15, they don't understand how to manage that amount of money. So I would have some say in it. So it really depends on all those things. And when we talk about leaving legacy, we have to teach the kids early, so when they get this amount of money, they don't just spend it. And so really instill the values of saving into the kids, saving and also giving. I'm not going to leave out giving, because it's really important for them to understand that they may be fortunate enough to have, but others are not. So it's really important to give back, whether in service or in money or both. But it's important to give back, really important. So I am not sure how young or old this child is when they got the money. And so there are all sort of variables around that. And then how did they get their hand on it? If they're 15, 16, they should not have all that money. I know they're going to walk and say, well, this is mine. And this is mine. And that's what all kids say, right? And we as adults say that too. This is mine. But it's not ours. It all belongs to God.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. Again, we're on the live with Yvonne Mito, financial expert. And we definitely agree that an hour is not a lot of time, and we can't cover everything in an hour. But what we will do, put her information up on the screen. I think we did it last time. And if you want to connect with her, and she can make referrals. But I think there's some good practical tips that we have learned today. And I truly, I mean, a little late for me because my kids are pretty much grown, but they do pretty well.
Never too late, though.
That's very true.
But you can share it in a different way,
Absolutely.
an adult way.
Absolutely.
To say, here's why. And this is when you focus on the why for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Because growing up, our parents, particularly my dad, I mean, his thing was save, 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 save. Just make sure you save your money. Save, 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 save. There wasn't a kind of way or model, so, okay, I'm saving, but, I'm in a little situation now, so I got to go take a little, I'm saving, but, I'm short here this week, so I got to take a little, until you get a little older and you learn principles for yourself. All right, we thank you so very much. Last few probably words or comments that you want to leave with the audience as we go through this. Maybe 60
again,
seconds.
I'm going to say right now, it's never too late for a share friend. You can start at any time. Don't say it's so late in the game now that I can't start doing anything. You can do it. And with God's help, you'll be able to do it. And it would be amazing to see what God does through your life as you make that decision to say, this is what I'm going to do. I hear the principles. I'm going to apply them, and I'm also going to teach my family, my kids, and others how to do that. So all of us can be on the same page, marching together to say, and then we can say, look what God has done in our lives. So learning to handle God's money God's way is really life transforming. And my desire is that both the first session and this session were of help to you, and that you will not only listen, but you'll learn, you'll apply them to your life, and then you'll teach them to others. Again, if you need resources, you can go to the Compass webpage. It's www.compass1.org. There are many, many free resources there that can help you to put your financial house in order. Thank you.
Wonderful. Before I let you go, correct me, I think you have the knowledge in this. There's a market. The market has a correction every 8 to 10 years, I would imagine. And we saw the last one. No one was expecting it this way. If you had a crystal ball, I know you don't, but looking forward, is it safe to say this will happen again?
I would say yes. Whatever goes up comes down, and so I would say is don't put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to that. Because that's what will happen, and it will fluctuate. Don't watch if you're saving for the long haul, when it goes down, what goes down will come back up. But if you take your money, your immediate money, and put on the market, and that's when people are having heart attack and they're jumping off the roof and all that stuff. But the market is for long term, and really seek a good financial planner. And when I said a good financial planner, is people who will take your interest at heart and not their interest. So making sure that, and you have Christian organizations that are solely dedicated to helping people. So the resources are out there. Check out all the resources. You're not alone. We're all in this together, and you can make it.
Real quick before we get off the air, I think we spoke about it briefly in the first session. How important is the emergency fund plan? How important is that? And could you elaborate just real quick? I think it's 6 months, correct? And what should that include?
I would say 3 to 6 months living expense, and I don't say through 6 months of all that you have, but 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. So you have to know, what's my living expenses? So how much do I pay for rent or mortgage? How much is food? You have that, and you start saving towards that. You're not going to just put it aside all at once, and this is not money for the stock market when it goes up and down, but you keep it so that when things happen like this, you don't have to panic, because you have to draw on. So it's really taking money, setting aside as you put your budget together, or your I like to say spending plan, because a lot of people don't like budget because they said, I'm not an accountant, so I can't budget. Yes, you can. It's all you have to do is identify your assets, identify your liabilities, and making sure you plug in everything that is you have in your financial life, and you'll be able to see where you are. So the emergency fund, I would say 3 to 6. That's my frame of reference. 3 to 6 months living expenses.
If I have 30,000 in savings, should I be concerned?
In savings,
Money that's available to me.
why would you be concerned? Tell me a little bit more.
No, okay, so in regards to the emergency fund, in another downturn like this, I do agree with the 3 to 6 months. But if I have access to, let's say, $30,000 because I've been saving, that's put aside, should I be concerned about having an emergency fund, or could I take from that?
No, I would take from that. That's because that's what it's for. It's for emergency.
Okay.
So this is the ideal emergency that I would pull from my fund.
But the idea is to have an emergency
have
fund.
an emergency fund, so you're not panicking when there's a downtime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. We have to bring this to a close. Again, I'm Bishop Neville G. Woolston on the live with Yvonne Minto, financial expert, and we hope that there's some information passed along that you're able to glean from tonight. And again, we have information on the screen, website, and please contact her if you have if there are any needs, or you need any further information. And if she can't do it, I'm sure she can make a referral. And again, the whole idea is to be practical. All right, it's not enough just to have the information. We said it earlier, information without application leads to frustration, and that makes a whole lot of sense. You have the information, but there's no application. It's not enough to just know it. My people are destroyed because of what?
Of lack of knowledge.
Not for lack of praying.
Yeah, correct.
Not praying.
Not praying.
Or fasting.
Lack of knowledge. Not fasting. Not singing.
We can sing.
Because of lack of knowledge. We can keep going on.
We can keep going on.
And it's my desire to really educate as many people as I can,
right.
Especially my Christian brothers and sisters, because many times that's where I see a lot that happens. And we are all, God will take care, but yes, God also wants us to plan. He wants us to plan.
We have to wrap it up. We can go on. As you mentioned about being, from Christian brothers and body of Christ. I mean, we're always quoting these scriptures. The wealth of the righteous is laid up, stored up for us. Okay,
yeah.
But then again, we're giving all this money away to whoever, 20 billion, 2 billion, and then we expected what to be stored up for us.
Amen.
So here we go, knowledge, right?
Knowledge. It's all about that. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so very much for joining us. Again, we have to sign off. Thank you again. Appreciate you. We appreciate you again. If you want to get in touch with her, information's on the screen. Have a wonderful night. Be blessed.